Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the beautiful city of Las Vegas, Nevada. You can see the gondolas sailing through this city, and we are here at the Aria Resort and Casino in the Poker Go studio, ready to jump into week number 3 of the Vainglory Premier League Summer Open. We had our European games earlier. Now it's time for North America. My name is Munchballs. I'm going to be joined, as ever, by Tasty Bacon as we head on into our games.
Yeah, what a set of games we have for North America. We already had some great games earlier today in Europe, but now it's North America's turn, and especially the final game of the day. That's one of the ones I've been waiting for since the round of 16 started.
Liberation X against Nova. Nova gets their debut. Liberation X gets an opportunity to prove themselves. Honestly, there is no bigger marquee matchup in North America right now.
Yeah, this is the hottest match in the round of 16. Period. End of story for North America, especially just because there's the potential for this to be an incredibly close match as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this one's going to pan out. Let's take a look at what's going to be happening across the course of today in our Razor Phone matchups. Over in Europe, we had two quick 2-0s earlier on. I say quick, a 0 and Exceed was incredibly close, but then Queso managed to round that one out. Now in North America, we're going to be jumping into Vegetable Juice up against Polar Ace, and then our marquee matchup, Nova Esports debut up against Liberation X.
Yeah, and this is, as you're going to see in the bracket, the B portion of the bracket where we're going to be focusing today. We've already got 4 teams in the quarterfinals from the A and C side, but this is now the opportunity for 2 more teams to punch their ticket to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got B today, then D tomorrow. But last week we had A and C, and we can take a look at our Rockstar Rewind of how Tribe and Hammers managed to push forward on into their quarterfinal games. Tribe had an absolutely phenomenal performance last week.
Yeah, and this was, again, business as usual. It's what we expected out of Tribe. We thought they would come out looking strong and looking dominant. That is precisely what they did, winning pretty much every team fight, forcing team fights at will. And then Hammers Esports, this was a team we didn't really know what to expect out of them because there was a lot of roster changes for them, a drastically different roster than we saw in the preseason, and thus far it's working out, but they haven't gone up against other top 8 teams yet, so I'm still a little bit hesitant.
Yeah, and you mentioned the top 8 there. I want to take a minute and just talk about some of the top teams that we have, and I want to start with Hammers because last week we kind of ragged on them a little bit because of their preseason performance, but they turned up last week and it wasn't just that they won their series, the way that they were playing as well was very coordinated, and they look like a unit, they look like a solid team. I'm excited to see how they're going to be able to do now that they're moving into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, well, they were expected to win that round of 16 matchup. They were the favorite coming in, as we've seen in North America and Europe. The favorites have been winning their games. Like all of the top seeds have been picking up the victories, and if that continues, then all of a sudden we're going to be looking at a potential final of Nova versus Tribe, which that would be. I don't think anyone would be upset with having that as a final, but it'll be interesting to see if this trend.
I think Vision would be upset with that being the final.
Well, nobody that's a neutral viewer would be upset at that, but it's been the trend across both regions where the teams that are the favored in the seeding have been the ones to move on.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've been seeing that in general, but today's matchups are kind of more up in the air because we have those middle seeds playing, but also let's take a moment to talk about Nova here because they're going to be coming in strong this week. We have yet to see them in the VPL, and they didn't play back in Ex-Scoundrels tournament, so there's kind of been a little bit of a hiatus, but in talks with the teams, apparently scrims have been going incredibly well for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that on paper it's still very strong. The only kind of question mark for them when they first came together as a roster was how would their synergy be? Would they be able to coexist on the same squad? Because there's a lot of individual playmakers on that team, but they have been able to put aside any differences, and which there were struggles early on. I mean, starting all over was on this roster, off this roster, on this roster again. And so there's a lot of those question marks of will they be able to stick around with this lineup? And they've been able to put those questions to rest for now.
So far, at least, you're absolutely right. My big question for them was consistency for each of these players in 3v3. We'll see if that changes, though, as we take a look at our Play Vig matchup for today. It's going to be Vegetable Juice up against Polar Ace. And speaking of Vegetable Juice, we had a word with Tsuki during the week to find out how he was feeling in our Razor Phone.
Hey there, I'm Tsuki from Vegetable Juice, and we are up against the one and only Polar Ace this weekend in the VPL. We've played against Polar Ace quite a lot of times in past tourneys and have always come out with the win. so we're looking for a clean 2-0. Anyways, hope this is a good series, and we are looking forward to play against either Nova or Liberation X in the quarterfinals.
Vegetable Juice feeling confident and calm moving on into this week. We'll take a look at their roster. It's Blanks, Tsuki, Polyphemus, Fez, and Keo.
Yeah, and this is a team that, there's a couple of familiar names on there. Tsuki and Blanks have been around in Challengers, but it's still get a lot of questions of how are they going to perform in 5v5. Another team that has a lot of those questions is going to be Polar Ace VG on the other side, with the lineup consisting of Elusive, the Hotted Killer, Celeste Pilot, Edgar, and I the Bay coming through for them. And again, this is a team where even if you followed Challengers, you don't recognize really any of these names.
And I think we need to mention a point here about the fact that if you're a team like Polar Ace, first of all, they're coming in as one of the middle seeds. So instantly, you have to give them some respect. In terms of solo queue ratings, these guys are good. But also, there is no way to really scout these guys. There is no competitive history to look into. You don't know their hero pools. You don't know what's going to be coming at you.
The best you've got is just looking at VG Pro and just checking out what they've played recently. That's really the only sort of research you can do unless you've been able to scrim against them or you've played against these guys in ranked queues and things like that. But so we get into our first draft of the game. We're going to find out where their priorities are going to lie when it comes to the heroes.
Absolutely. Vegetable Juice versus Polar Ace. It's going to be 8th versus 9th seed here. And it's going to be Flicker banned away to start this one. Flicker has been seeing way more attention today than I was really expecting him to see, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these picks that it kind of saw a couple of picks and bans here and there through the first couple weeks, but it's been in just about every single draft today thus far. And like you said, getting a lot of ban focus as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Kinetic going to be banned away as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see things like the Fortress, the Reza, Anchor banned away here. We have seen some other people straying to other bans, but generally that's been the focus. And then once we get to the first picks, that's when things will start to get interesting. And this second ban for A-side is always the interesting one to me, because it indicates a lot on what you actually want to be picking up for yourselves. Looks like Kensei is going to be banned away, which means that either Reza or Anchor would be open. We've discussed Anchor as a first pick. We're kind of undecided whether that's doable. Obviously, we saw Queso last picking it and having tremendous
Not so much that we're undecided. It's more that we're in disagreement on first picking it.
I think it's a great first pick.
I don't think it's a very good first pick. We haven't been seeing it as a first pick. I like it as a late pick. Grumpjaw ban is surprising, but
100% win rate so far.
Absolutely, and again, the top teams have been picking it, but this does mean the Fortress is open for the first time in a long time. It'll be interesting to see if that does get prioritized, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the first pick, at least. It's going to go to Tony.
I like the Tony pick purely because nobody's realistically going to pick Reza and Anchor in a team. Maybe you could, I guess you could. Maybe you don't see that because they're often banned, I guess, but Tony, I think, incredibly strong right now. I think he's been underrated, honestly, and how high up the draft.
I mean, he's usually picked pretty early in drafts.
Yeah, but it's usually like second, third, fourth rotation. He's never seems to be first pick, but name a better jungler right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, he definitely can control the jungle. I'd say I would put Grumpjaw above him at the moment, with just the amount of early impact you can have. But Tony's just scales a lot better into the late game than Grumpjaw, so you're kind of shoring up your roster for that. And you look at the draft right now, those just 3 heroes, very much late game scaling. And even the Baron on the other side is also that late game scaling. There's the Fortress going to come through. I was, again, almost surprised to see it get this deep into the draft before Fortress gets grabbed. I was expecting it in one of those first 2 rotations.
Yeah, I'd love to see Vegetable Juice round this out with something like a Finn and a Gwen, something like that. You got a big, beefy, tanky frontline as your captain, and then something like the Gwen, just to round it out, have your weapon power carry, like a Vox would work too. Just something to be dishing out that major weapon power damage. I would say that would be an incredibly balanced composition for the current meta.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely work out for them. It could be. I could even see something like Sky fitting into that role as well.
Sky as well.
Because then you have that extra mobility to go along with it. Finn is going to be the pick up here. So both sides going very heavy on the survivability and the durability of their compositions. I mean, Catherine, Finn, and Tony, all 3 of those are incredible defensive heroes that can also engage a team fight as well. And then they're going to round out their composition with Sky, So, again, when you have all these big bruisers and frontliners, I think Sky just works so well because you're able to just maneuver around, protect yourself by staying behind your frontliners, but then when the time is right, you can go deep onto the enemy team's backline as well.
Absolutely, and it's going to be Celeste to round this one out. Pretty unsurprising there. They had no CP, they needed a mage.
Yeah.
Celeste is open. It's like, yeah, that's reasonable. But it does mean mega late game composition from Polar Ace. They need to be lasting as long as they can across the course of this game. They need this to be an extended matchup.
Yeah, and a lot of that's going to stem from the early game and how they play early on. Because if I'm the side of Vegetable Juice, I look at that composition and say, all right, we need to go in aggressive. We have Finn, we have Catherine, we have lots of lockdown early on, and Tony as well for another stun. We need to go in, win these fights in the enemy jungle early on. So now it's how does a team like Polar Ace answer to that?
We'll have to find out. Let's take a look at our trending heroes right now. When we're talking about the drafts, we've seen some heroes starting to be upped in kind of their effectiveness. We've seen them in a lot of drafts, but Finn and Tony especially, Samuel as well, incredibly strong right now. What's been going down in favor? Definitely Malene and Vox. I'm starting to disagree with my own. I put Celeste in this graphic. I'm starting to disagree a little bit. I think she's doing really well right now, but it's about time we jump into this game though. It's going to be Vegetable Juice going up against Polar Ace. It's time to jump on to Sovereign's Rise and find out who's going to be able to take this one. It's kind of an unknown, and it's time for Scoundrel and Flash X to take it away and let us know.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, North American VPL, and we have Vegetable Juice taking on Team Polar Ace. This, on paper, looks like another Juice victory. Not quite the Flash X Juice, but definitely a Juice of some kind. And they obviously on paper look like the stronger team. I even being a European player, recognize some of these names. I've seen them on some VG Players solo queue games on North America. So they look like the stronger team off the outset.
We know they've drank their vegetable juice. If they have the Flash X juice on top of that, that is one healthy combination. But yeah, vegetable juice coming in here definitely is the more veteran team, if you will. Granted, I don't know that they necessarily have any of the like pro top tier experience, but certainly Fez, Suki, Blanks have been around the block, have played quite a bit. Things in North America, though, starting off much slower. If this was Europe, there would have been 7 kills by this point already.
Yeah, North America taking their time a bit more. How have we got to a point where it is Europe that is the region that Clown Fiestas it at level 1, and it's North America the one that takes the time? How has this happened?
I don't know. Like I really just don't understand it. North America going for the more calculated play. I think if you want to play tiebreakers, I think that this slower start is much more similar of East Asia. So North America maybe taking a page out of East Asia's book. East Asia, on the other hand, maybe even feels a little bit behind after Tribe winning Worlds in 2017, wanting to try and mirror imitate the North American strategy. But I mean, this should be a great game. 2 very good compositions coming out of both teams.
Oh, that was a nice delay on the Tony engage there onto the Celeste. She used the core collapse thinking that he was going to engage with his A, and he held it, let the core collapse Joe down, and that's going to be a double kill. I don't even think that yeah, they both used their flask, but a little bit too late there. A quick double kill in the early game right now for Vegetable Juice puts them off to a good start.
Definitely a great way for Vegetable Juice to start things off. Tony with the double buffs. Not only does he have the stun, the taunt, he had the slow with his basic attacks. Super good. So 2 really important things in this matchup. Both teams essentially have 3 tanky frontline heroes. Vegetable Juice with the Tony, Kath, and Finn. And then Polar Ace, on the other hand, the Fortress, the Churnwalker, and the Arden. It's going to be so important for these backline carries. The Sky and the Scarf on the side of Juice, and the Celeste and the Baron on the side of Polar Ace to make sure they are positioning well and cleanly behind their tanky front lines in order to make sure they're maximizing their damage.
Aggressive by Juice there, but they didn't quite steal away the CP buff. That actually went over to Arden. So denying it from the Celeste is a good result for Vegetable Juice there. They might not have got much more than that, but denying that CP buff from the Celeste means that Suki on this Scarf is going to be a bit more, I guess, impactful in trades should they come to take them.
Yeah,
And,
because Because he was able to get his own crystal power buff, that's just going to give him straight up a lane advantage. You're going to be able to put on more pressure. You're going to make sure that Celeste isn't just completely free farming. A little bit interesting rotations. The Celeste and the Baron sharing the jungle, whereas it's actually the bot laner and the jungler on the side of Juice sharing the rotations.
Yeah, and you can see a very late game orientated carries coming out from Polar Ace as well with the Baron and the Celeste. I mean, that is a composition that's going to take time to get online. I'm not saying that Scarf Sky isn't that, but they definitely spike a little bit quicker than the Celeste and the Baron do. So obviously, if you're looking for a mid-game advantage, Juice definitely has that.
I definitely agree, and considering the fact that they've picked up these 2 kills already, established a little bit of a gold lead, definitely puts them in a great spot to press that mid-game advantage. But I do think that if this game goes too late, the Baron and the Celeste are going to outscale, and I think with their front line, with the Fortress and Churnwalker combination, on paper, from a draft perspective, I think puts Polar Ace in a really good spot. It's just going to come down to, are their mechanics strong enough to be able to match those of Juice's? Can they keep their composure? Can they play patiently enough to allow these heavy carries to get to the point that they need to be in order to carry the game?
You also need to watch out for blanks on this weapon power Sky. If there is one thing that the Celeste is going to be weak to, is that dive power of the weapon power Sky, especially when she gets that 3-item build, can be very difficult to deal with. Although, like I said, I love that front line. There they go. They're diving onto the Celeste now. She gets stunned up. She could get taunted in just a second as she walks away, but the stun does come through, and the disengage is there once more coming out from Polar Ace. They group up as a unit. Think Fortress ended up getting the CP buff. He did. So once again, an aggressive push by Vegetable Juice does not result in a CP buff for them, but does deny it away from the Celeste once more.
Yeah, I mean, still, no kills turning over there, but that's still a win for the side of Juice. But I think Ace can actually be happy. They did at least secure the buff for themselves. Sure, it's not going to the hero that you want it to go to, but you're at least keeping the golden experience in the pocket of your team, and Juice gonna have another great invade, stealing away that weapon power buff.
Yeah, nice death from above going on to try and zone out away from the Gold Oak. There's the ultimate coming through. I think that is going to go over to the Tony. Yes, it does. And they managed to steal away 2 camps there. Unfortunately, no one from Polar Ace in a position to be able to try and contest that and go for a weapon power invade onto the side of Juice. So they will just leave it at that. One thing I have been impressed with, by the way, from Polar Ace, even though they are, slightly lower caliber team than Juice, their vision control has been pretty sick. I've been pretty impressed with the way that they've been getting those scout cams down left, right, and center. And again, like you just saw there, an element of it demonstrated as Polly tried to back and was spotted out by another scout cam that has been, it's been so florid from the composition or the team coming up from Polar Ace.
Warding and T-warding, definitely super important, making sure your team has an advantage. I love this out of Juice. This is actually, I think, another defining feature that separates North America from Europe. I think North America does a much better job at grouping at the 6-minute mark and taking that Ghost Wing as soon as it spawns. Much better than Europe does. They're not scared to just go for it. Even though they didn't have any kills, they recognized where everyone was on the map. It was great map awareness. And even if Polar Ace tries to contest that, Juice understands that they have a lead, that they have the better early/mid-game composition, and they're pressing that advantage in their favor. I definitely think that that's room for where Europe can improve overall.
Yeah, I think Clash is one of the only teams that does that to a sort of very high level where they constantly pressure the Ghost Wing as soon as it spawns. And I think that's one of the interesting differences in regional meta that we have, that North America, they aren't so aggressive early. They don't put so much pressure on invading buffs as Europe does. Europe is super all about that sort of invade on the weapon power and the CP buff every single opportunity that they get. North America, they will try and do it, but they won't commit, their life and soul to getting that, that CP buff or that weapon power buff taken away from them. Whereas they will go for something like Ghost Wing super early on.
Absolutely. The duo of Catherine and Tony, so strong, able to pick off Benji up in that top lane. The amount of crowd control that pairs between those two heroes is so strong. One stuns, one taunts, the other one stuns. Very hard to get out of. Baron needs to hit level 8 to get that overdriven jump jets to be able to counteract some of this crowd control as soon as possible. And if he is continuously punished for poor positioning and is unable to block those abilities, that is also going to be critical in playing in Juice's favor.
What I did like there was because the fact that Celeste and Churnwalker went up to deal with the invade on the weapon power buff, it meant that Scarf, the turret-taking machine that he is, got that mid lane tier 1, which is not a common turret that you see fall in the early game. Especially because it's so easy for mages in general to clear waves that you very often don't see that go down before the side lane turrets, where you often have mismatches in terms of range and numbers. But now that that's open, that allows this Juice team to wander the map and be a bit more aggressive. Like you see here, the roams left, right, and center.
Yeah, absolutely. Great rotation up to the top lane. Baron, again, he jump jets. Not only did he get stunned immediately afterward, Catherine put up her Stormguard bubble. Baron did a ton of damage to himself, and then it was just a huge blast tremor coming in to take off the kill. And Juice putting themselves in great position. They have all the tier 1 turrets in every single lane. That's going to open up the map tremendously to enable them to rotate across the Sovereign's Rise, just playing fluidly as a team, especially as the Ghostwing getting ready to come back up. They're already posturing for it, trying to lock down some map position because they understand and know that it's coming back online, and they are going to want to take it as quickly as possible.
Looks like they're going to go straight for it. However, Polar Ace, well, I thought they were maybe grouping for it, but it looks like they're just going to try and clear that mid lane wave. This should go over. There might be an ensuing team fight. We'll have to keep our eyes on it. Polar Ace are definitely trying to get in there. The Baron ultimate does come down, lands a good amount of damage. Here goes Blanks. Great death from above. It's actually going to separate out the team from Ace, who managed to pull it in, but there is the Fin Hook. Having seen the Crucible, Scarf is going to toast them like an oven, and this is Polar Ace getting very heavily heated up right now, and they can't actually contest this Ghostwing. That was a really nice pull off the back of that Crucible that was lit up from the death from above.
Yeah, great stuff out of the side of Juice. They're up 6-0, 5k gold lead. Slow, methodical, very well calculated, pressing small advantages, building up their lead over time. Great split lane push right here. Polyphemus and Blanks in the bottom lane. Elusive doing what he can to try and contest. I don't know if it's going to be enough, though.
No, I don't think so. Elusive is going to go down, and that's going to be another dive that's gone in the favor of Vegetable Juice. The first kill of the game goes over because Fez a little bit aggressive on that tier 2 turret in the mid lane, and unfortunately can't convert. Vividry now coming down to the bot lane, trying to not give away that this team is in his reinforcement, but unfortunately they will be pieced out very quickly as Banks and Polly kind of understand what's coming and back out.
Yeah, absolutely. Things looking pretty good for the side of Juice. At this point, they just need to make sure that they continue to stay grouped. I actually really like how tight Ace is playing. They understand that they're behind, and in order for them to try and come back into this game, they need to find those numbers advantage style engagements where they can pick up a few kills and start to reduce this lead that Juice has built at this point. But with Juice picking up the advantage in this engagement, I do not think this is what Ace wants at all.
No, unfortunately, Ace one and Tony ultimate that's going to push Bay back, and Churnwalker, not the target you want, but it has isolated Celeste, which was the important part, and Blanks is going to do what a weapon power guy does best and just decimate that Celeste. You can see Benji in the top lane. He's not interested in team fighting right now. He just wants to split push and farm. However, Juice look like they could be heading up towards that lane, maybe even going for Black Claw if it does not result, and that looks like that's what they're going to do. Look at this. Not afraid to just commit to an objective like this, and Black Claw at this point in the game pretty easy to take given that Juice is so far ahead. This is getting smelted. Absolutely melted right now, and then despite the scout cam going down, they're not going to be able to contest it. A decent Celeste ultimate attempt, but unfortunately for Polar Ace, that's a Black Claw unleashed in the mid lane.
Too little, too late from the side of Ace. Definitely gonna need to make sure that they stay coordinated during this Black Claw push. They need to communicate right now exactly how they want to execute this. If they have really good map awareness, they should understand that both the Sky and the Catherine are separated from this team fight and try and use the numbers to their advantage.
Yeah, this is something that we see quite a lot, split off Black Claw. I don't like it at all. I really don't like splitting off Black Claw unless you're planning to play a siege type game. And the problem with this situation right now is that if a gauntlet came out and they just wanted to engage, this is a 5 versus 3 situation, and with no teleport boots, there's no way to do that. However, Polar Ace do not feel comfortable making that engage, and actually, despite the fact that this was a massive numbers disadvantage and a power play on the map that could have been made to try and find Polar Ace way back in, they are not confident enough to commit to the fight, and with Ghostwing just having spawned, that's going to be an easy back out for Juice and another objective to add to their notch.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Not a huge fan of the split pushing unless your lanes are already pushed and you're already able to impact the map in a meaningful way such that you're dealing damage to those turrets. I don't like split pushing at all. I think that that's definitely an area of improvement for Juice to try and work upon. They are hungry for more kills right now, though.
Yeah, and Celeste gets taunted up. She's dead. No way she survives that. Bay now gonna be roasted by this scarf. Celeste, rather Sky picks up the kill at the end here. This should be a push in through the armory. I don't see any way of Ace actually contesting this. They've only got 2 items on their Baron. Looks like Blanks is not done just yet. He's trying to get a big bit of damage down, but he's going to be able to use the Suri Strike to back away. And this should be a finish of the game by Juice. A very quick 14-minute win.
The Juice is loose, putting their first win here in game number 1 up on the board. What I thought was going to be, more of a prolonged game, they just quickly turned things on. Very coordinated in their objective. They understood that they picked up those 2 kills immediately onto the Vein Crystal, wrapping things up.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to pass it over back to the desk, and they can break that one down a bit further.
All right, what a game coming out in the end. It was fairly close between these two teams, but
For a bit.
well, it was fairly close for a little bit. But it was definitely not a particularly clean game coming out. Like it felt a little bit discombobulated among the two teams, but going one-sided towards the end of the stages of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where, yes, Vegetable Juice got the win. They looked strong in the end, but if they play like that against Nova, against Tribe, against even Liberation X, maybe you don't know if it's going to be Nova or Liberation X, but if they play against one of those other top teams, they're not going to get very far. So it's one of those situations where, yes, they looked, good in getting the win, but you could look better. And you're going to have to look better if you want to be contending with the rest of the field.
One thing that did look incredibly good for them, though, was their draft. Their draft was
absolutely
nigh on immaculate. Like, I had very little criticisms of their draft, and I want to see them managing to repeat that coming up into the next segment as well, into the next game. Sorry. Polar Ace, though, definitely some maneuvering to do. I think it's fair to say some things to sign up, especially once it got to the mid-game, kind of just being on the same page, knowing what you need to be achieving. Like, are we trying to pressure Black Claw? Like, are we split pushing here? Are we grouping up to fight? Just making sure that everybody is on that, singing from the same hymn sheet, essentially.
And not only that, but just choosing your battles. There's one moment that stood out to me where it was Arden tries to 1v1 Sky, who's already got a massive lead, ends up having to blow the gauntlet just to escape that fight. And that's a massive that's a 2-minute cooldown. And you're just blowing it because you tried to 1v1 a carry who's got a lead. It's just little decisions like that are things that you really, really need to clean up, and you need to clean up in a hurry.
Yeah, let's take a look at the bracket. This is where we are playing here today. We're currently in Vegetable Juice versus Polar Ace. The winner will move into the quarterfinals, and their opponent will be either Nova or Liberation X. That's going to be our marquee matchup coming up a little bit later on. But we're going to be jumping back into Vegetable Juice versus Polar Ace. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about the top teams we have here in North America. Now, Bacon, me and you disagree slightly on our power rankings here. Do you want to talk me through yours first, and then I'll rebuttal with mine?
I mean, we agree on who the top 3 teams are. It's just a matter of where they get placed. I've got Tribe at the top because we've at least seen them be dominant here today. We saw them win the EPL very convincingly as well. This is a team that on paper should be the best team out there. Vision, we both agree, is the second best team. You look at this Vision roster, it's part of the former TSM roster, and it's also the old 3v3 Vision Gaming roster. That's what has me most excited about Vision. Then Nova, it was kind of a tough decision between Nova and Vision for me for second and third, but ultimately because of just the pedigree of the members of Vision that were on TSM, I feel like they have to be the number 2 squad because they have that preseason performance backing them up.
Okay, so I'm going to disagree with you on Tribe and Nova here, because Nova right now feel like a team that's kind of hotting up. They feel like a team that currently are building up. We've had a little bit of a hiatus, but every player I talk to is scared of Nova. Every single team that I talk to, Nova is the team that people are nervous about. Tribe, not so much. In the preseason, they finished third, and then more recently in X-Scoundrels tournament, they finished first, but most of the top teams weren't playing in that tournament. So it feels like, yes, Tribe have looked fantastic so far in their games. I'm not trying to take anything away from Tribe here, but we actually haven't seen that much in terms of big name teams that they've beaten recently. So against the big name teams, they came third in preseason. So I need them to prove something to me here. I need them to take these big games. And Nova, from what people are telling me, and Vision as well, these are the two teams that are really scary in League right now. But the two teams we're talking about right now, Polar Ace VG versus Vegetable Juice. Our draft is underway. Kinetic going to be the first ban. It's a pretty standard starting off ban. And that's going to be answered with a Kensei as well.
Yeah, so the two big carries taken off the board, these are the two that usually get left open as the toss-up of which one do you want to take. And so now, again, bans can go really any direction. We could see the Fortress, we could see the Reza. There's a lot of different options available for the bans. It all depends on who you want to be open to you for your first pick rotation.
Yeah, absolutely. Churnwalker ban is definitely a curious one. We've seen a lot of Churnwalker today, to be fair, but it feels, even if it's impactful, it doesn't feel like necessarily ban-worthy, unless maybe Gabe Bizzle's playing it, I think, or Flash perhaps as well. But Anchor going to be banned away, which means Grumpjaw first pick. That's, I mean, Reza's open as well. You could have gone with the Reza Fortress as well, but Grumpjaw definitely. Grumpjaw has shot up in priority this week.
They banned it away last game. Now they get it on their hands. If they feel like it's the strongest pick, then they feel like it's the strongest pick. So obviously, they didn't want their opponents to be able to play it in game number one. So you have to do something different if you're Polar Ace, and getting this Grumpjaw is something a little bit different. Maybe they can use this Grumpjaw to get that early game pressure and potentially look for early game team fight victories. But they need to do something different from game one. And so I would like to see them actually draft around this Grumpjaw and go for another, very early game focused, very pick potential heavy type of hero. The Anka is available. Could be building a composition around her, looking to get her online early.
Yeah, absolutely. Fortress going to be locked in here. So far, just very strong picks. Going to be starting this off. Celeste Pilot hovering the scarf against his own name. Celeste is available, buddy. It's in your name. I feel like you should just go for that. Scarf is going to be the lock-in. I mean, Scarf, obviously, very good pick, being serious. But Lance is going to be hovered as well. Lance seems like an interesting pick here, not because he's not good, but because I feel like things like the Arden are just outright better right now.
Well, I would say it's better if certain heroes aren't on the board. There are heroes that Lance just does exceptionally well against, but none of those are picked right now. So I definitely, at the moment, I think Arden would have been a much better pick. Samuel, Lance does pretty good against Samuel. You can body block a lot of his shots coming through, but there's going to be the Arden that you were alluding to. But without having stuff like a Scarf or a Sky or other heroes where you can body block a lot of their damage, I feel like that's where Lance really excels. And so he's a much better pick later in drafts once you've already seen what your opponents are bringing to the table. But the fact that they went from this early with only knowing Tony and Fortress, neither of those two are really shut down by a Lance.
Maybe we're about to be shown that maybe Lance is a pocket pick for one of these guys. That's very possible. Obviously, like we've been saying, these guys, a lot of them don't have a huge competitive history. So this could well be the pocket pick coming on through. We could see something amazing come to our screen. It's going to be Vox and Lorelei locked in to round out Polar Ace's composition.
Yeah, we did see Lorelei do exceptional work earlier today, but that was with a player that was playing incredibly aggressive with Tricky. So we'll see if anyone on the side of Polar Ace matches up with that level of aggression we saw earlier to really take advantage of the Lorelei and all that she can bring to to enabling a carry.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other side, though, it feels like Vegetable Juice, they have a very aggressive composition themselves. They've got Fortress, Arden. They have so much hard engage to be able to force these fights. The carries just need to follow up on that. They can really make these team fights happen. If they can execute that win condition, that's the beauty of an all-in composition is if you can just force that all in and you're all on the same page, it's a very easy win condition to pull off.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also a very risky win condition because if you do go all in and you don't get the kills you're looking for, if you go all in and Lance Githian walls your entire team into a wall, you're now in a whole lot of trouble. So you have to play it right and you have to play it aggressively, yet with a
Yeah.
hint of caution in there.
I'm not convinced by the Lance pick. We'll see if it's going to be enough to stop this, but I don't think it will be. It's time to jump into game number 2 here. Vegetable Juice against Polar Ace. 1-0 to Vegetable Juice. We'll see if they can turn this into a 2-0 in a moment's time.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are into our second game here. Polar Ace swapping over a couple of heroes this time, Flash. Looks like it's going to be Polar Ace taking the Scarf, running the same skin, and it's actually going to be Blanks running on the Baron.
Yeah, definitely some great drafts coming out of both of these two teams. They're still pretty much using the same strategy. 3 tanky frontliners, 2 hyper carries in the backline, Blanks on the Baron, Suki on the Samuel. I am going to have to give the draft this time over to the side of Vegetable Juice. I like it a lot better. I do think Ace has room to make it work. Particularly, I do think that they have a stronger early game comp to where if they can stay grouped well enough, communicate well enough, they might be able to find a little bit of an opening to try and make it work. But I think as this game goes, as everyone starts to scale, Samuel and Baron together with the Fortress in the front line is going to be very hard for the side of Polar Ace to try and deal with.
Yeah, I think you could be right. And I think as well, what we've seen from Vegetable Juice is they're very good at pushing advantages. You have the Samuel, which spikes a lot earlier than the Baron, so it will provide some kind of mid-game presence against the thing likes of the Scarf and the Vox. And then when you get to that late game, you've got this powerhouse Baron who's just going to rip through any front line anyway. That's just kind of what Baron does. And then obviously if he gets a jump onto the Scarf, he's going to get blown up. And there's only the Lorelei for protection. It's not like they're running multiple protectors here. It's just the Lorelei. So that ultimate has to be used at the crucial time if you want to see a successful team fight from Polar Ace.
And the question is it really even a protection Lorelei? She started with 2 crystal bits. We've seen a lot of players and teams utilizing these top lane utility style heroes. And while Lorelei can be played as a utility hero, she started with quite a bit of damage, relatively speaking. So she might not even be going for the traditional Pulse, Weave, Storm, Crown, Crucible, etc. style build that we're so used to seeing.
Yeah, the thing about going CP Lorelei, in my opinion, is that it's great in an isolated 1v1 scenario. I just think it kind of sucks in teamfight situations because you have such small area of effect damage and you're all about those basic attacks. Why would you just not run a basic attack? You know, more sort of a better basic attack focused hero. The only thing I can think of that going the double crystal bit will help with is that you have excellent wave clear in a 2v1 scenario.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you right there. All right, we're 3 minutes in. No kills yet, but these two teams posturing like they're ready for a team fight.
Oh, baby, it's going to be Samuel getting that CP buff. Blanks overextending, but manages to get away with that healing flask. And right, oh, big impale, big Githian wall. Suddenly, Ace are pushing things back right now. And Benji, the madman, does some insane work, but they've got to get through Suki. There's a really, really nice stun onto Suki now. And Bay is going to pick him up. What on earth happened here, Polar Ace? What a big play.
That is huge for them. That's exactly what I was talking about. Their early game, so strong. This is their window of opportunity to try and capitalize on it. Grumpjaw, this living armor buff that he got in 3.6 has really made him so strong. He started off that last team fight going in, applying the Dragon's Blood contract onto 4 of the members of the side of Vegetable Juice. And Ace, Polar Ace, just absolutely punishing them for their over-aggression.
Yeah, wow, look at this. 4 kills to 0. The gold lead not amazing right now, but 1,000 gold is nothing to sniff at. And Juice, I mean, I just guess they weren't expecting it. I just thought they thought, well, we crushed them so hard last game. I mean, they're not going to be able to match us mechanically at any stage in the game. And they underestimated Benji's Lance. What a setup for him. And a good way to give his team the platform because they now have some minor advantages in terms of weapon, in terms of in tier 2 items. Not much to sort of write home about, but some minor advantages.
Yeah, absolutely. And Benji on the Lance in that big team fight was absolutely pivotal. The Impale was beautiful. The Githian Wall was beautiful. If he can continue to replicate that same level of mechanics throughout this game, that is going to set his team up for success 100%. And that's something that Vegetable Juice really needs to just respect. They need to understand that they have to be positioned better. They can't all group up like that because in these tight spaces with so many walls on the Sovereign's Rise, you can get punished so quickly.
They're not even really respecting that there could be vision there for Polar Ace right now, and there is that Scout Cam. Benji uses the Githium ult defensively, doesn't have it to set up for the stun, but it doesn't matter because Elusive picks up that CP buff. Doesn't go over to Celeste, or rather the Scarf. I'm going to call it Scarf because it's going to get confusing if I could call her by her name. But it's not going to go over to the Scarf, but it does go over to someone who will make use of it. And it is looking like Elusive is going for a very CP-heavy Lorelei build.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely going to be a lot of damage. Suki in a little bit of trouble. He needs to kite away here.
He will
Great
do
pressure by the side of Ace.
Yeah, but that's the Crystal Treant that they're going after. Unfortunately, they didn't get the kills that they wanted, and therefore that's allowed Juice to recuperate, and that's going to be a Crystal Treant going over to the Samuel. There is no group up around 6... Well, there is a group up around 6 minutes here. Can they go for it without getting engaged on is the question. Lorelei in the top lane, she's not there at this point in time. Samuel picks up his first big item spike. Now they're looking to go in. Vividry actually gets out. There's the Oblivion. Nice dodge. Fancy feet. Left, right, and center right now for Polar Ace. And it is going to be a very risky Ghost Wing if they want to go for it. They wanted to take that level 6 group up. Looks like they're going to continue to do so. It is risky to do this, though, Flash.
I actually think that this is a great, very knowledgeable play out of the side of Juice. They see the Scarfs in the mid lane. They see Lorelei in the top lane. They understood that Grumpjaw was really too low to contest. There is going to be a little bit of pressure from Box and the Lance. Not going to be enough, though, to steal away that Ghost Wing.
Yeah, I think if Polar Ace were a bit more organized, that could have been a fairly easy contest with the Scarf there. Just because everyone was running so low, you didn't need to commit. You could use Spitfire and Goop just to create a bit of pressure. So I think a better team actually might have punished that. But I agree. They saw the back of the Grumpjaw. They knew he'd back. They knew they had a man advantage on that side of the map. And with the Scarf pushing mid lane, I guess they made that assumption that Ace weren't going to contest. So it was a really nice heads-up play. I just think if Ace had been a bit more confident, that was an easy contest for them.
Yeah, I mean, every team definitely has different methodologies as to how to play different objectives. I think that you do have to give credit to Ace for their top lane pressure. Big team fight, though.
They're just not respecting that Lance. He gets another big Impale, and now Vox looking to clean up. Oh, when are you going to learn, Juice? You just can't let them do this. That's a big, big taunt, though. This could be time for blanks, but that's an early Fountain. A Fountain first item coming out for Benji, not going for the Crucible, and maybe that baited Juice a little bit there because they obviously didn't have that in their arsenal because Kyo had already died off. And now, it looks like Polar Ace going for this mid lane tier 1, and suddenly Juice not in that commanding position that they were in the previous game.
So despite Juice having the Ghost Wing buff, it is Ace who continues to dominate this mid game, continuing to really just excel at the early game pressure and very small lead that they had. They're 6-0, much, much better confident gameplay out of the side of Polar Ace. Definitely a really good display of composure, not to get inside their own heads despite dropping the first game. And they're going to look to pressure this bottom turret, which is the last tier 1 turret they have for the side of Vegetable Juice. And once that goes down, it's going to be very easy for Polar Ace to be able to rotate across the Rise and continue to pressure all lanes.
And you can see Scarf actually hitting some nice item spikes. He's already picked up that Spellfire, has got a decent amount of gold in the bank. One of the things is that I'm impressed with that they are keeping up in CS. You know, something that I think they fell behind really easily last game is that their CS was their CS was struggling quite heavily. But this time around, they're CSing really nicely. And actually, Polar Ace with a 2,000 gold lead now. So they've actually extended that gold lead that they had in the early game. Is it enough, though? Because Blanks has already picked up his Serpent's Mask, and he's very close to finishing that breaking point. That is a Baron that is accelerating himself towards a late game weapon power build here. And actually, that puts a timer for Ace to do more than they are right now.
Absolutely. He's level 7, so he's still behind in terms of the carries. You have Vox sitting at level 8, the Scarf sitting at level 8. But once Baron picks up level 8 of his own, being able to dodge out a lot of the crowd control from Lance is going to be critical. Suki, though, why weren't you with your team, my man? That's the wrong side of the rock that you want to be on.
Suki has not had a good game. He is 0-3-0. Now, he is keeping up in terms of item spikes with this Scarf to an extent. He is at 2 items. Scarf looks like he's going for a little bit more of an expensive build, though. As you can see, he's working towards what I imagine is going to be a Dragon's Eye next. And now, Polar Ace are the ones to take that initiative and go for Ghost Wing. And unfortunately, Juice just not in a position to contest. Fez maybe looking for a Miracle Steal, does manage to piece out of the Githium wall, but not piece out of the Impale, has to ultimate over the wall. Is that enough, though? Vividry doesn't get the ultimate, but he has got the charge onto the turret, and I don't think Fez has got any way of protecting himself. That is the passive shield coming through, but unfortunately not enough. We have a fight still going on, though, as Keo over there forcing his team to back out. And Ace, oh my word, this is a complete turnaround from their previous performance.
Much cleaner. Just look at their positioning, the way that they're grouping, the way that they're breaking down these fights. They understand where to split, how many resources they need to allocate towards different objectives. If you're on Vegetable Juice, you need to work on your positioning. These guys are constantly getting caught out. They're not together as a team. It was something that they did so well in game 1, but now that they're behind, it's really showing, and Polar Ace is doing an absolutely phenomenal job of capitalizing on it, especially as the Bay is going back in on this box.
And the Arden has to use the gauntlet to get out of there. Not a great gauntlet in terms of stunning everyone up, but it will be enough to keep him safe. He also uses the fountain too, and that means there's no way there's going to be a CP buff contest. I think one of the major mistakes that Juice made is they just kept running like lemmings into that CP buff area from Polar Ace, thinking they could contest, and the Lance was punishing them every time, and that has resulted in what you see here. One of the only issues that I have this game is that the CP Lorelei, I feel, will be a weak point for Polar Ace. I just don't feel that front line is going to be good enough versus a Baron as this game scales up.
I think that that's a really good point. We said it at the start of the game. It's going to be up to Vegetable Juice to play this patiently enough and allow their carries to scale. I do think that Baron can completely take control of this game. But if you look at Vox on either Bay on the flip side of the coin for Polar Ace, sitting at 5-0-3 is exactly what he needed to accomplish in the early game and mid game. And he himself might be strong enough to just put the team on his back. Yeah, I probably agree with you. I don't think the crystal heavy build on Lorelei is the right direction that Elusive should have gone. But if he's just in the back line throwing out stuns, throwing out slows, and he drops a water wall into Vox, that's going to be something that can really punish Juice.
Big team fight opening up here. That's huge damage from the Samuel. Forces up the early fountain. That's a kill right now, the first kill of the game. Unfortunately, Scarf turns around. He burns Tsuki to a crisp. But Blanks is the one that you've got to worry about. Those breaking point stacks are starting to hurt. He's going to get a triple kill. Suddenly, this Baron's online. And right now, Juice managed to find a huge comeback fight.
That is huge for Juice. Definitely going to turn their attention straight on to Blacklaw now that that's online. Blanks, he started that fight off beautifully, building stacks, and as soon as he felt like they had ramped up, he jumped in, went straight onto the Vox, which is essentially the critical point for the side of Polar Ace, and was able to get his team a really nice team fight. They're going to secure Blacklaw. Polar Ace almost with a big steal right there. That would have been absolutely huge if they could have secured that. Gonna be interesting to see how they execute this Blacklaw push, though, with Blanks on that Baron going into the top lane.
Yeah, it's something that I do have a little bit of an issue around, but it is just that first tier turret that they're working on. It's not huge. That's a big ultimate. Hits 5 members. That's hard to do as a Baron sometimes. And now Juice are being forced back, or Juice are forcing Ace back from this tier 2 turret. Blanks finally joins. That is an aggressive push coming out, just zoning away with the Fortress. The Tony jumps in to give them space for this tier 2 turret, and a 2 turret take off Blacklaw is it good enough? It is good enough for them to now work their way towards Ghostwing.
I really like this from Juice. Super heads up play. They understand that Blacklaw still has a little bit left in his tank. Blanks goes, steals away the weapon buff. I think that they're just trying to bait out the Blacklaw at this point. If you're Ace, you do have the cam down there, so they know that it's not too much of a threat. But on the flip side, if you're Juice, you see Lorelei in the top lane, why not go for it? They see the recalls come out, they see the cam, they can go in, get rid of it, and this might be a free Ghostwing for the side of Vegetable Juice.
Really nice positioning from Fez, if I'm completely honest there. Flash, he just waited. He was like, okay, we're going to make them think that we're not doing it. They might not want to commit because they don't have the man advantage. As soon as they backed, free Ghostwing for Juice. They are quite low now. That's a big Vox ultimate. There goes the Arden Gauntlet. This is going to be a huge one if Juice can take it. Massive damage. The splash damage left, right, and center. That's a double kill. Is it going to be a triple? He's got the squishies on the back line. Blanks is searching for it. He might get the triple. He does. He's converting. He's going for the quadra, but it won't be the penta as the Grump Job backs off. And so we'll have to cut the hype a little bit short, but that is late game Baron online now. The build, Serpent's Mask, Breaking Point, Tornado Trigger, very popular build among weapon power carries because of those changes to Tornado Trigger and how powerful Serpent's Mask is right now. And he is hitting like a truck.
Ace, it's a Baron. You can't group against a Baron. You're going to give him way too many stacks. Blanks just 1 jump jets at the start of the fight. Got him up to almost 10 stacks. At that point, it's game over. He's going to be dealing way too much damage. You can't do that. You need to be able to stay spread out. Otherwise, Blanks is just going to completely take this game over. And then Elusive, one of the squishier carries in this game because he did go that Crystal Power path. Also going to enable Blanks to build up stacks very, very quickly. They're going to melt straight through that backdoor barrier like it's butter and be able to continue to rotate this game, swinging back into the favor of Vegetable Juice.
And Juice look like they're in a great position to close this one out soon. They have Black Claw coming back online moderately quickly, and they can take that when it next comes up. They're going aggressive in the jungle, though. They want to take this. They do get that Gold Oak. And now, oh, what a great Tony ultimate. That's isolated the Vox. Well, I think the damage, the fortified health coming up from the Slumbering Husk was enough, I thought, but that was just going down to Tony at the end of the day. This might not be a massive winning team fight. I can't quite tell at the moment because Suki manages to get a huge Oblivion off, zoning away the Lance, and right now Tony chasing the Grumpjaw down the sidelines. Not a massive win team fight. They still have lots of wave clear to deal with the Scarf and the Lorelei, but I was just not expecting that. That was a massive Tony ultimate.
I was thinking that if you're Vegetable Juice, you might want to wait until the Gauntlet comes back online. It was critical in the team fight prior. It's not going to matter, though. Baron, again, Blank's doing such a good job. His positioning has improved dramatically compared to the start of the game. And now that he does have those big items online, he is shredding through Polar Ace. Is going to be very hard for them to be able to contest this Black Claw capture. Definitely going to be taking down the Black Claw. Ace positioning like they want to contest just a little bit, but they little bit too late. Black Claw on the board, coming down the mid lane. This might be the final push of the game coming out of the side of Vegetable Juice.
Sorry to leave you there, Flash. I got a phone call. Had to quickly pick it up. But thank you so much for covering me.
Oh, right, you're so welcome.
Here we go. Juice pushing down towards this Armory turret. The Black Claw will do the initial damage. There's the siege coming out from Samuel. It's starting to look good. Black Claw working with that ultimate. That's a great Tony ultimate. Absolutely isolating the Vox. And he should be a quick target for the rest of Juice to clean up. Suki actually pretty low here. He has to be really careful. Kiting back against the Grumpjaw. Grumpjaw's damage isn't really insane at this point in time. And really Blanks is the one that you've got to worry about. There are those big chunking auto attacks coming out from the Baron. And while the rest of the team tanks them up, Blanks is building stacks left, right, and center. This might not be an easy win, though, because the Scarf ultimate is going to start to really hurt. And Blanks right now has run out of front line. He has to start getting towards that back line with that Samuel. That's a couple of hits. One more hit onto the Scarf should be enough. He just needs to get another jump jets onto Elusive, who does not have a tanky build at all, and should be an easy pickings for him. Vividry already used his A, so can't jump onto the fountain. But I think at this point in time, Black Claw, Suki, and Blanks will be enough to win this series out, and especially as Fortress just teleported back in. So this should just be a final push here from the Fortress with the Black Claw, and they should be able to clean this one out. This will be a 2-0 victory for Juice.
Well played, Vegetable Juice. A clean 2 victory indeed. Game 2, though, not as clean as Game 1. There's definitely areas for them to improve. I like this stuff. I think that this is definitely a team that some of these other teams are gonna have to pay attention to, gonna have to watch out for, because there are moments that it looks like very high-level Vainglory gameplay that is definitely respectable, and I think Juice can be very happy about going forward.
Yeah, right. Well, that was an incredible game. I think, to be honest, Polar Ace really showed a lot of heart in that early game, and Juice had a good amount of gut to bring it to the late game where the Baron came online. But we'll hand it back to the desk and now see what they have to say.
Holy Blanks, what a game coming out from the Baron. Blanks absolutely on fire. I don't even know where to begin talking about that guy, because even right at the very end of the game, he was making plays.
I mean, this game started off looking like it was going to be the side of Polar Ace getting the win. Like, they had a commanding lead using that Grumpjaw and Lance early game, But then once that Baron got a couple of items, it feels like we're just repeating things that we've said in 3v3. Once Baron gets a couple of items, he starts to take over the game. Like, that's exactly what we were saying in 3v3, and it's obviously still the case here in 5v5.
One of the big things as well was the Scarf just wasn't having an impact, and there was no reflex block built early on in the game, and every single fight, Suki would just pop his sleep over into the back line, put Scarf to sleep so he's dealing no damage whatsoever, didn't have a reflex block to block it, and in the meantime, Blanks is just tearing the entire team apart. Incredibly well played there by Vegetable Juice to come back from, it was like a 4,000 gold deficit as well at about 12 minutes. That is a serious comeback for this team.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like Polar Ace got that early lead and then just got complacent with it. And we're like, all right, we got ourselves a big lead. We could just coast the rest of this game, push it to game number 3, and just rinse and repeat for game 3. But they didn't adapt to the fact that all of a sudden Vegetable Juice was getting their builds on. They were hitting their late game power spikes. And Polar Ace just did nothing about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic stuff coming out from Vegetable Juice. I think well and truly, with a comeback in there, I think they've well and truly proven that they were the better team here today. Let's take a look at our Razor Phone bracket as we move on with our day. That's going to be Vegetable Juice moving on forward, which means it's about time that we now look towards our remaining matchup here in the round of 16. Nova Esports up against Liberation X. This is a matchup and a half. Now, obviously you can see we almost have all of our teams into the quarterfinals, just 3 more to decide. And we're going to be deciding whether it's going to be Nova or Liberation X moving on forward.
Yeah, this is a matchup that we talked about it last week, where it's almost a shame that it's happening in the round of 16, because I would love to see both of these teams move on from this point. But unfortunately, only one of them is going to make it there. And it's now do or die time if you decide Liberation X. The comeback story for Liberation X from the first ever North American Live Champions, now trying to make a resurgence, be the first ever North American 5v5 champions as well.
We'll have to see. Honestly, I'm just excited to see Nova heading on to Sovereign's Rise. Before we get on into that matchup, though, let's have a word from our sponsor. Welcome back to Las Vegas, Nevada. We are here in the busy streets of the Strip in the Aria Resort and Casino. We're here at the PokerGo studio for week 3 of the Vainglory Premier League Summer Open. Now, we've had 3 out of our 4 best of 3s here today, and it's time to head into our Play Big matchup for Nova Esports up against Liberation X. Now, Nova is, let's start the conversation with Nova, because this is an all-star roster. These are all guys that have been professional for like years at this stage, and also these are playmakers. These aren't just like your average players that are kind of coasting along the middle of the pack. These guys want to make wins happen and fast.
Yeah, and you look at really top to bottom on this roster, starting all over, Truth, Delphi, these are names that have been playing competitive, as you mentioned, for over a year now, at the shortest time, really. And they're all just known individually from different teams for being playmakers and being able to carry different teams through to higher levels of play. But now that they're together, they're able to just kind of, it's worked. It's a lot of individual players. Like, this is one of those teams where you look at it and you think, okay, yeah, they're all individually good, but once it comes to the team fighting, they're going to collapse and fall apart. But that hasn't been the case for them. We saw it in preseason. We saw it in a couple of games here and there mixed in since during the off time between the preseason. But these guys, they're the real deal.
Yeah, they may well be. We'll have to see, because it's been a little while since we saw them play. Last time, though, was in our Rockstar Rewind of the preseason games. We can take a look at kind of what was happening with Nova back in the preseason. They actually lost against Rogue fairly early on in the season, and this was a painful loss for them as well. But we saw them evolving across the course of the season, and even upsetting Tribe later on.
Yeah, early on, it definitely seemed like there was a bit of those growing pains, a little bit of that synergy not being on point, the team still trying to find their identity. But as the preseason went on, over the course of just 5 weeks, we saw this team grow and become a much more dominant force, and a force much more in line with the sum of its parts.
Yeah, absolutely. And the parts are the main thing that realistically is what makes this such an incredibly strong team. And I want to take a moment to just talk about starting all over, because I feel like when you think of Nova, he is the guy that really stands out from the pack. And that's saying a lot, because you've got guys like Truth of Light on this roster, who in himself is an incredibly strong player, but starting is just an absolute god when he's on point, but he can be inconsistent, and that's what we've got to be looking out for today.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the story with starting all over is, will he be performing at the top level? Because you go even all the way back to when he was on Hammers and when he was the core component for Hammers, it was always, is he going to play to the top level, or is he going to play over aggressive, step a little bit too far out of line, and then get caught and taken down and leave his team out to dry as a result? And more often than not, recently we've been seeing this starting all over that has been able to perform at the top levels, just push heroes to their limits, but know where those limits are and just towing that line dangerously, as opposed to when they'll just go ignore limits and just go way past the line and end up running out of space.
But that's the beautiful thing. That limit is where you see the glorious plays. Yeah. Let's take a look at some of our major players here in North America. Now, starting all over is absolutely going to be one of them for Nova, but I also want to talk a little bit about Cos from Vision Gaming and Status from Liberation X. We'll talk about Cos first, because he's on Vision. He's not going to be playing until tomorrow, but he's kind of the mastermind of the jungle. He's renowned for just his knowledge of how to play that jungle and how to read his opponents.
Not only that, but just of innovating in the jungle as well. On TSM, he was playing heroes in the jungle that no one else was touching, let alone touching in the jungle. And so he was able to make them work. CP Baron in the jungle is something that he pulled out against Tribe even, and picked up the win with it. So he is not afraid to branch out and try something new. And it's one of those situations where you have a mind like that working in the game at such a young age too, able to just really allow the rest of the team to kind of be very free thinking in how they go about things as well.
Yeah, you kind of open everything up for the rest of your teammates. As we talk about our North American top players, we have to start talking about Status here for Liberation X. Now, Status, he's also a jungler, and he's been
probably a little
block.
Annoyed that was the picture you used.
That's the one I had. That's the one I had. But Status, definitely a guy that he has been around the block. He is very much a voice of experience and a voice of kind of stability within any roster. And I think that's incredibly important to have, especially in the jungle position, because you're kind of the one that sets the pace of the game for your team.
Yeah, and Status is one of these players that he's been a very well-known player. He's been a top-level player, but he's never really been, you don't look at any of the teams he's been on and be like, Status is the reason why they've won. And he's always been this player that's just very consistent and is able to kind of keep everything together. And that's almost as important as one of these highlight reel, playmaking players that you think of when you think, okay, why did they win? Kind of you need both.
You
parts.
have to have the support.
You have to have someone who fits both
shine.
roles, and Stat is definitely one of those more. He used to just dominate the jungle, but now it hasn't really been to that level in recent history.
Honestly, in 5v5, it doesn't feel like jungle is that kind of role, honestly. But let's take a look at this matchup, starting off with our rosters here, brought to you by the Razer Phone, of course. We'll look at Nova Esports, Delphi starting all over, Truth, Eco, and Erica Kane. All 5 of these players you already know either from preseason or from before. Every single one of them an absolute superstar.
Yeah, and speaking of superstars, you look on the other side of the rise with Liberation X. You've got Marto, Sam916, Status, and Demon. Demon, you may know as some of his other names. He was King, Zero. He's been around the block as well. Of course, Sam used to be E36. Status, of course, his brother, and then Marto, the super sub from the first ever live championship. One of the biggest personalities in Vainglory. When he's really in tune with everything, he can just be so much fun to be around and can kind of keep the spirits of a team high as well.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about Liberation X here, because we've talked a lot about Nova. Who is it on LibX that you mentioned that Status is very much that stalwart, steady, kind of supportive player? Who is it that you're expecting on Liberation X to kind of take over a game? Who's the guy that we've got to be keeping our eye on?
Demon is the one that really has to step
Appropriately
up.
named.
Yeah, it really has to be the one to make the big plays for them because he's traditionally been in the carry role, but again has been sort of similar in that he hasn't really stood out on most of the teams he's been on, but needs to do so within this Liberation X lineup, needs to be one of the big names for this team.
Sure. We'll see if that's going to happen here today. We are in the draft for game number 1 here between Nova Esports and Liberation X. It's going to be Kinetic and Scarf banned away, as well as Anchor and Baron. So Baron and Scarf being banned away in one series, definitely an interesting one, but it is going to be a Churnworker first pick. So already this is kind of a topsy-turvy draft and some interesting lock-ins here.
Yeah, I mean, now we'll see Finn is going to be hovered. We get Churnwalker and Finn as the first 2 picks. Again, just kind of shows where these teams are focusing their priority. And we've seen a lot of these top-level teams putting emphasis on the captain roles and then rounding things out around that.
Yeah, I mean, we still have Kensei, we still have Reza available. Reza is now going to be hovered. It would be incredibly appropriate if Demon plays Reza. That would just be so nice. But well, I'm curious to see what Nova are going to lock in here. Because when you think of starting all over, you think of things like the Celeste, for example. Excellent Celeste player. But honestly, I could name pretty much any carry hero, and you would be like, yeah, starting all over is really good at that. So I'm curious where they go. Again, we're going to, like you said before, sticking to pretty safe picks here. Grumpjaw, kind of pretty much a utility pick at the moment, and Tony just pretty much the best jungler.
Yeah, Tony is just going to be universally picked up early in draft. Samuel being added to the side of Liberation X, just getting that durability up. You know, obviously you have a lot of dive potential with the Reza. The Samuel now brings in that long sustained fighting potential. So 2 very different play styles with these 2 heroes. It'll be interesting to see if they try and lean more into one of those 2 play styles or not. They're going to grab the glaive, so this kind of leads a little bit more towards the Reza style of going in aggressively, picking out one target and taking them off the map.
Yeah, absolutely. Glaive we've seen a little bit today, and we saw Tyra's playing it over in Europe and played it to tremendous effect. Obviously that was queso, so you anticipate that every pick they go with, if you win 2-0 cleanly, the picks are going to look good at the end of the day. But
Arya,
definitely a playmaker. Vaya, we've seen sneaking, it's kind of on the fringe of the meta, right? It's this mid lane pick that can be incredibly strong, but some players aren't comfortable playing it, and Celeste has just been a higher priority pick.
I think the reason the Varia comes out here is because they have the glaive, the Reza, and the Finn. You need some way to get out of a fight if you get forced into one that you don't want to be a part of. And Celeste doesn't have that option, whereas the Varia obviously can use that dash to get out of a sticky situation. So it makes a lot of sense to me that they would grab someone that has that extra mobility as opposed to the more standard laner of the Celeste.
Rona's going to be locked in. I love Rona, but most importantly, Rona, when we've seen it in the preseason and the regular season, it's dominated. I don't know why Rona's such a fringe pick, so rare
She got a pretty heavy nerf, some between the preseason and the VPL Summer Open that really kind of pushed a lot of people away from her. She got a small buff, but wasn't a major buff. I think the big concern a lot of people have is that you have to change the way you play as Rona now. It used to be you just go in, you get your ult, and you just sit there spinning in the middle of a team fight for days. You don't get the same level of the rage from the ultimate anymore. So now it's a very different playstyle. You're much more basic attack focused on the Rona, or just using the utility of the Into the Fray to create those slow fields against the opponents than you are just being that spinning top in the middle of a team fight they have to deal with.
I still think that you can take over a game.
Oh, I absolutely, I love the Rona pick.
You can
I really want, I've been wanting to see Rona for actually a while now.
It's about time that we did see it. It's time to jump on into this one. Liberation X versus Nova. This is the matchup you've all been waiting for. Let's see if Nova can live up to the hype. So I'm going to pass it over to Scoundrel and Flash X.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are into our final series of North America and our final series of Vainglory for the night. And it is going to be Nova versus Liberation X. A pretty hype matchup in terms of names. Delphi going in very early here. Another sort of Clown Fiesta level 1. But it's going to just taper off a little bit. Delphi forced to use his flask very early in this engage.
Yeah, definitely some more early game aggression that we haven't really seen out of North America. Not going to be any kills on the end of it, though. But 2 super well-known teams, both for different things. Liberation X, again, your first North American autumn season champions way back in 2015, 2016. It was a long time ago, but they have been around the block for sure. We've not seen them in competitive play in quite some time. I like their draft, though, and they're getting involved early.
Ooh, they're going to get the kill there. First blood on to Edial. And actually starting all over here. Ooh, the lightning is going to slap down Status, who unfortunately didn't have, or Status. I say Status because I'm British, but it should be Status, right? And that's the American way of saying it. But regardless, that's going to be a kill going over to Starting. And Starting, known as one of the most mechanically gifted players that Vainglory has seen. And he's on Varia, so you can have good use of those mechanics this game.
Starting when he is on his game, he's an absolute monster. Should be really interesting to see what him and Truth are able to accomplish. Definitely great friends. They are a very, very dynamic duo when they're feeling themselves and they're in synergy. Potentially even the strongest duo together in all of Vainglory.
Yeah, Truth when he's on his game. By the way, Truth is Vox this game. The both of them just very young players, but very, very talented as well. And it looks like they are on two sort of hyper carry-esque carries in this situation too. I'm looking forward to this game just because you've got the Swollest team in VG going up against potentially one of the the more mechanically gifted teams in Vainglory as well. With
the least swole.
Yeah, the least, I suppose so, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what every single one of these players look like. So I just obviously know that Starting and Truth ain't gonna be swole compared to pretty much everybody on the Liberation X roster. Have you seen Status recently? The guy's a monster.
He's huge. He's huge. He definitely fills out his jersey, that's for sure. But Status also on this Rona, not a pick that we have seen very often, but a pick that you can be very aggressive on. And he's looking to take down Edial on Tony up in the top lane.
Oh, he's diving here, diving hard. I think he's going to go down. Yeah, pop the flask a little bit too late in that situation. Maybe wouldn't have made a difference anyway. And that'll be a 1-for-1 trade. Do you know why we don't see Rona flash? Do you know why?
I think that really because there's just so much crowd control in 5v5. I actually think that it's going to be quite the uphill battle for Status with the Tony, with the Grumpjaw, with the Churnwalker. Both Vox and Varia are quite mobile as far as backline DPS style carries go. So I think it's going to be tough for Status. I think he's going to he needs to have a very strong early game if he wants to be successful throughout the course of this series. But Rona, because we haven't seen too much of it, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. But if anyone can do it, Status is Rona, a thing of legends. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes.
I love how you answered that properly, because I was about to say it's because she's trash. But but thanks for answering it properly. Actually,
Oh,
a little bit of a miscommunication between Sam and Status there. Sam with a really good afterburn onto Edial, but Status was more interested in taking that healing Treant away. And again, they're going to continue that pressure in the top lane. Looks like there's a bit of over-aggression from Eco and Starting in the mid lane. And Status is making his way down. No vision there for Starting and Eco, so he's just looking for his opportunity to strike.
Yeah, definitely waiting is right. Status going in on a Starting and Eco, going low. Exhale, definitely one of these players that has been around as well. Really well known for his Celeste back in the day. Samuel, though, definitely the powerhouse mid laner at the moment. If he is able to position well and his brothers are able to position in front of him, he could potentially be a huge force in taking down Nova, which would be quite the upset and quite the accomplishment. But Liberation X, definitely known for some of the biggest upsets back in their day.
I want to see it because this would be, I think, whilst the names themselves lend to it being obviously an even matchup for a lot of people, it would be an upset. I think Nova probably on paper are considered the better team just as of current state. But like you said, Liberation X can always pull something out the bag. Never count these guys out. Very, very good unit. They work really well as a team together. And obviously that's really important in 5v5 scenarios. Demon, they had vision there. Was he face checking to just bait for Status? I guess that was the reason, as Eco now backs off on that Clown Walker.
I think that's a probably good inference, just kind of making Eco think that, he didn't have the vision there. Obviously, if he were to have basic attacked them, Eco could have potentially put down a counter cam. Demon probably wanted to try and maintain his vision control while he had it. Ghost Wing online, though. Liberation X, to my knowledge, doesn't have any competitive experience in 5 versus 5. So if there's really room for Nova to flex as far as their experience goes, it would definitely be this game. Starting all over, his life ended, just absolutely obliterated. Great patience out of the side of Libex right there.
And it was the long bait. It was making the team of the Nova think that there was no vision around that blue side because Demon face checked that Churnwalker, so he just thought there must be no vision there. And starting got baited into sitting in that position. A great execution blow by the team from Liberation X. And whilst this has all been good for them, and whilst the kills are even, the gold lead has been ticking up for Nova. They are 2,000 gold in the lead right now, Flash.
Yeah, definitely the slow, methodical play. The kills are even. Nova taking the lead as far as objectives go. They took down that first turret. Ghost Wing still online. Not really any opportunities for either of these teams. And I actually don't even think either of these teams have great compositions for taking Ghost Wing super early. There's no high DPS heroes. They all take a little bit longer to come online. And they're really just a lot more sustain in the Vox, in the Varia, kiting back and forth. Eco, though, on this Churnwalker, going to look to get chained up before this fight starts.
Yeah, Eco has got that level 6. Amato does not. Starting actually uses that ultimate, cancels the animation with his B, and now they're looking for that fight. Mato overextended. There's the ultimate coming out, and finally, Grumpjaw, great afterburn onto Delphi. Delphi had to spit Status out, but spits him right into his killing range, and Status now churns that ultimate. In the meantime, though, Truth has gone man mode, dives in onto the glaive and gets the kill there. Right now, it is 2-0 for Nova. Liberation X might not be able to contest this Ghost Wing if that is what Nova are going to go for.
Yeah, even though Truth on this Vox went really low at the start of the fight, the Serpent's Mask and update 3.6 is so strong, definitely shaping to be really the core meta item on a lot of these weapon power heroes. Definitely enabled him to sustain regen quite a bit throughout this fight. Nova going to go ahead, pick up the first Ghost Wing of the game. Now they need to use this buff to their advantage and continue to extend their lead.
Delphi takes away those doubles, and he does back out here. Has got some cooldown reduction with the Storm Crown and another chronograph working towards the Aftershock, so he's going to have that A on a very low cooldown, increasing his mobility. And yeah, you're right, Serpent's Mask Vox. It is kind of the standard build, which is why I was surprised in the last series to see Voxes going for Poison Shiv. Now, Poison Shiv is obviously necessary when going up against lots of heals, but because of, like you said, the addition of Spellfire, it's not a must-have item like it was on 3v3. Like in 3v3, if there was any heals, it just was a must-have item because there was no CP equivalent. But there is a CP equivalent now, meaning that you can be a bit more varied. And the fact that Poison Shiv is kind of trash. Sam gets destroyed, blown up left, right, and center. Status now stuck in no man's land, and this should be cleanup squad coming through. He can jump over the wall, but Delphi's ready for it. Yep, he is, and he is going to follow up onto Status.
Good boots by Eco. Make sure Status not getting out of there. Rona, definitely showing why she doesn't quite have a place in this meta. Status playing against ranked Q players, not the same as playing against Nova. Nova knows exactly how to execute. Ediol going to be stealing away this weapon power buff. Going to be something that, Status probably wishes he could have back, but nothing you could do about it at this point. Nova definitely just flexing up in this top lane, going straight onto the turret, even though it has a barrier. And Liberation X on the back foot.
Yeah, and right now, this is Nova flexing, like you said. They're going to go aggressive. That's going to be a kill onto Sam, and Liberation X now are clamoring in their jungle to try and head towards that top lane where another turret goes down. Right now, a 4 versus 5. 4 versus 4 because they got the kill. There's the ultimate coming up from starting. Doesn't cancel the animation, though, and this is going to start chunking down. The slows work. Massive Churnwalker ultimate, and that's going to be the Samuel going down very quickly. Starting now, kites away from Status, who is absolutely melting through Eco, but no one is focusing starting on this Varia, and she is starting to output insane damage in this fight. Jumps forward, starting, lands the lightning bolt like Zeus, and Mato, one more basic attack will go down. Sam walks to his death. I think he was hoping to get some cleanup kills here. We'll get one, but unfortunately, the ace comes through, and in the meantime, Truth, on the bottom side of the map, is just going to take another turret.
Sam Onglaive basically died twice in that series. He died once just before it started, went back, and he did pick up a kill, but dying on the backside of it as well. Meanwhile, Truth on this Vox in the back lane wasn't a part of any of that whatsoever. He's going to get a turret for himself, and being uncontested, sitting at 4-0-1, absolutely commanding lead as far as CS goes. He has got to be feeling really good about that one.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely no kidding. Status is on 23. Sam's on 37, though, I suppose, but then you look at Edial, and he's on 52. I mean, this is just a massive CS lead right now. Main portion of that gold is going to be landing in CS, I think, at this point, for as well as turrets for Nova. Also, you got to point out that if you were to pick two carries that Rona does awfully against, I would say Variant and Vox are two carries high up on that list. Too much mobility for these carries for Rona to chase, and once she's used that gap closer, she really doesn't have much else in the tank to chase down these highly mobile carries.
Couldn't agree with you more, and I actually think Churnwalker is one of the best captains for playing against Rona, being able to stun her when she dives in, pull her back, pull her off of, you know, the enemies that she's trying to red mist on top of. Super, super strong and very effective.
Ooh, look at this. Truth still going aggressive here. And this is just another Churnwalker ultimate that's going to land a kill. Churn will actually pick that up. The minions will now draw aggro from the turret, and there should be another tier 2 turret take. In the meantime, Sam and Status are going to get their first turret of the game in that top side of the map, but they bled so much for it across the rest of the map that it's really not one of those things that you can call worth for.
I definitely agree. I think that they might even look for the tier 2, but that really opens up the map for Nova to just go on a Ghost Wing. And with Black Claw online right now, that's probably not a trade that, you know, you're going to be happy about. Like, sure, you got the gold, but giving up the Ghost Wing buff with Black Claw online, that's going to give Nova a huge advantage, and they are now in a great position to just be able to flex, you know, the almost 7k gold lead that they've amounted at this point. But, you know, Truth on this Vox, he's not playing with his team too much. He's split here a little bit. It's one-on-one against the Reza, but the rest of the team on the other side of the map, I don't know if necessarily that's the right decision, if you will. I think that Vox is so good in these team fights because he is so mobile that he can have a much larger impact. But maybe after he picks up his weapon buff, he'll rotate up in that direction, and especially now that Nova have secured the Black Claw, this is the time to group. We'll have to wait and see what he decides to do.
Looks like he wants to continue pressure in the side lane. Now, I usually would warn away from this when you have a Black Claw up and available. Actually, that's a lie. He's now going to head towards the mid lane. But I think with Truth being so strong, like, he can 1v2. So even if resources are pulled towards him, he's still going to get pressure in that side lane. The minions are actually doing it for him, so that's why he's going to join up here. And it's going to be an all-or-nothing fight, I think, for Liberation X at this point. They have to kind of all in and get that burst damage onto starting and onto Truth.
Absolutely. They're going to start sieging down this turret. It's gone down. Trespass into the base.
Oh, but this is too much, I think, for Liberation X. The damage is just piling up right now. Truth literally frontlining as Vox, face tanking Arona, and gives absolutely no damns about it. Marto's now going to be on the list. That's Finn for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it is going to be the Vein Crystal taking the beating. This should be the first game going over to Nova.
Definitely a win that Nova can be very happy about. Liberation X, hey, for not having competed in a 5v5, putting 6 kills on the board, definitely respectable. Certainly many holes and area for improvement. Drafting, definitely you need to set the tone from the get-go that you at least have a strategy or a plan. I don't think Rona's a part of that. I'd really like to see Status on something else. Someone with a little bit higher skill cap, being one of the more experienced and mechanically skilled players on his team that he could really use to his biggest advantage.
Yeah, we'll see what the desk have to say about that as we throw back over to them.
Nova Esports managing to push that one to a victory in the end, but it has to be said, at the very start of the game, Liberation X were taking it to them. They were trading 1 for 1. They were going very even. Then there was a point, I think it was about 5 minutes into the game, where Nova just flicked a switch, and from that point on, Liberation X could do nothing.
It was about the rotations. Liberation X's rotations and answering the ones that were coming out from, or more specifically, I should say, answering the rotations coming out from Nova were just not on point. There were multiple times where we saw one person from Liberation X defending a turret, and then 2 to 3, 4 members of Nova all of a sudden being at that turret, picking up the kill, and then taking the objective, and then the rest of Liberation X was rotating over to try and help prevent that push from going too much further, and it was just being late really on those rotations and not getting there in time to answer the movements that Nova was making.
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked the Grumjaw play we saw coming out from Nova as well. The ultimates being used to stop Rona building breaking point stacks. And if you can shut Rona down early in the fight, she can't really have much impact. She's all about the breaking point, stacking up and then destroying a team. But because she got eaten so early, she wasn't able to do that, and it meant that Nova could take those fights convincingly. Here's where we are in our Razor Phone bracket right now. We're in Group B. Vegetable Juice have already moved on into their quarterfinals. You can see we are there in Nova Esports versus Liberation X. And we'll see whether LibX are going to be able to even things up in this series, or whether this is going to be all about Nova Esports. And when we talk about Liberation X, we have to talk about what happened in week number 1 in our Rockstar Rewind.
Yeah, Liberation X, there was a lot of question marks of, is this team going to be able to do anything in the VPL Summer Open? And obviously, a lot of people wanted to see them get through the play-in stage and get to the round of 16, but no one was really sure if they were going to be able to shake off the rust, because it had been a while since this team had been together, but they were able to do so, and they did it pretty convincingly in their matchup in the play-in stage. But now, again, you win the play-in stage, and your prize is having to go up against one of the top 3 teams in all of America, and that's a tough task.
Yeah, it definitely is. This is a difficult match for Liberation X. But before we jump into game number 2, let me just quickly remind you guys at home of the format we have here, brought to you by Poker Go. This is a 5-week tournament, and it is single elimination, which means if you lose your best of 3, you are going to be knocked out of the tournament. So this is definitely a brutal fight for the title of the best team in either Europe or North America.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what it's all about. And not only that title, but also you can see the Dollar Shave Club prize pool, $5,000 per region up for grabs in the Summer Open.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot on the line here for these guys. And Nova, definitely one of the forerunners, one of the favorites to try and fight for that first place $3,000 prize pool. It's about time that we start to pivot towards what's going to be happening in this game, because Liberation X, we saw them in the preseason, we saw them in week 1, sorry. They can look incredibly strong. What do you want to see from them in game number 2 here to see a bit of a better result than what we saw against Nova?
Honestly, I don't think there's an issue with the draft. I think the draft was a perfectly acceptable draft. Obviously, some people are going to look at that Rona pick and be like, oh, well, is that the right pick here? But
I mean, he got a solo kill under turret at like 2 minutes.
I mean, I think the Rona pick, I don't think the Rona pick was an issue. I think there is a place for Rona if you are able to work around it right, or if you are able to prevent yourself from getting eaten by a Grumpjaw. But it really just came down to the rotations in game and their ability to keep up with Nova. It just felt like Nova was just moving at just a little bit faster pace than what Liberation X was ready for.
Now, interestingly, Liberation X have banned Truth's Vox away. Truth was doing wonders on that Vox, especially when it came to the fights, but also in terms of farm, he was 20 CS up on anyone else in the game. He was absolutely loaded, so once it came to those team fights, he already had so much damage, he was able to tear people apart. So usually, Vox ban I wouldn't be a fan of, but with how well it did in game number 1, I can kind of understand.
The only issue with banning away the Vox there and the way that the strategy played out is you gave over the Grumpjaw again. And again, we've seen this Grumpjaw now be incredibly effective. We saw it basically take apart the win condition that Liberation X had in game number 1. So obviously this time around, maybe either expecting to be able to block the stuffed ultimates or just not having any one target that is going to be easy enough to grab for this Grumpjaw. So obviously you don't let it through twice if you know, or if you don't have a way that you feel like you can deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So incredibly good AoE so far from Liberation X. When you look at that composition, like Arden, Samuel, and Baron, if you can get a good gauntlet going, there is a huge amount of cleave that's going to happen inside that little area. I'd love to see them go with the Rona again, stick to their guns with that, because it fits the composition beautifully, and then maybe something like a Churnwalker to round it out. That could
Churnwalker's already...
Oh, Churnwalker's already picked. But yeah, continue to stick with that theme, look for the 5v5 team fights, have a solid win condition, and just push for that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously having that strong win condition base for your team that you can look for is just, it makes winning the game that much easier because you're now no longer trying to figure out, okay, how do we win this? It's just, how do we set up what we need to do to win? Because you already know how you win a fight. We're gonna grab the Catherine. That's, again, can be used for that AoE with the damage getting spread from the Stormguard bubble. And then, of course, the Blast Tremor can just set up fights so incredibly well. And then a Kestrel coming out as the final pick. That one is a bit different from the rest of their composition, but it's still a lot of damage that's coming out of this team.
Yeah, absolutely. But they, with a Catherine and on, they have a good amount of peel as well. So this is a composition from LivX that I could see doing very well. But again, you fall behind, you're really going to struggle. Nova, on the other hand, a little bit less damage loaded on their squad. I'd expect that Adagio probably going to end up going as a carry rather than a captain, because otherwise they might be struggling French with that.
I don't know. I mean, most of the times when we've been seeing the Adagios, it's been in that more captain role. I mean, we've seen teams run triple captain
some of them
and still have enough damage. So I feel like this will be a little bit more towards the captain-oriented side because you've got that Tony, you've got the Churnwalker as well. There are going to be.
It's going to be CP Adagio, dude.
I don't think it's going to be CP Adagio. I think they want to get more of that health, more of the activatables to deal with things like the Samuel, like the Kestrel and the Baron, because you need to have that tankier lineup to deal with a Baron Samuel Kestrel.
I think they just won't have the damage if they don't go for some kind of carry Adagio. We'll have to see what they are going to go for. That's the beauty of Vainglory. There are plenty of options available. And it's about time we jump into game number 2 between these two teams, though. Nova versus Liberation X. Let's see if LibX have got what it takes to stay in the VPL, or whether Nova are going to walk on forward into the quarterfinals.
All right.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
You waited, so I was like, all right, I guess I'm taking it over. That's okay. Game number 2, Nova versus LibX.
My brain was a bit slow. I registered it very quickly, and then I was like, oh no, it's all good, I'm good. Anyway, we are into this game 2 right now, and look, Flash, they changed things up. They've definitely changed things up, and status on his CP Kestrel is definitely something that when it was 3v3 meta, people would fear in some instances. So what do you make of this?
Yeah, CP Kestrel, definitely another one of Status's signature heroes. Unfortunately, Kestrel, another one of the heroes that really, in my opinion, struggles in this meta. I expect him to have a very impactful early game, but with how tanky the meta is right now, I'm really concerned that Nova is just going to be able to ignore the splash damage and go straight onto Kestrel in the backlines. I mean, you have Maline, Grumpjaw. They have abilities that they can just close the gap, get straight on to Kestrel, and make it really hard for her to be successful.
I think also looking at this, and I think from Liberation X, what I've seen from them for the most part, they love their comfort heroes. Like, it's just heroes that they like playing and they think they're good at, without kind of putting too much pressure on the meta itself. Sam now in the back line. I think he's dead. Pretty much. Delphi's going to be able to slow him down with the Grumpjaw here. And also you can see Truth playing that. Adagio will pick up the first blood here, and unfortunately Sam got caught behind enemy lines. But yeah, bringing that back, it just... these guys are comfort hero players. They've got their comfort heroes. Might not work in the 5v5 meta per se, but for them, they've been able to pick up wins just by playing the stuff they like.
For sure, yeah. Sam 916, a newer face to the Vainglory scene. It might be a name change. I'm not too familiar with who that is. Sam on the Baron, I'm pretty sure is the Sam that we know and remember from Liberation back in the golden days. But someone forgot to tell him that jungle is not his own and not to be that far into enemy territory. Some posturing around this mid lane. Status does have that weapon power buff, which does synergize really well with Kestrel. Maline, though, so much burst damage.
Ah, yes, Maline. Very, very powerful hero. Been hard to balance in Vainglory, realistically, because she just kind of does a bit of everything. And starting, you could see the damage he was able to output with just a little combo at level 3. Status is going to get caught up here. Has to be super careful. So does Starting, though. So he takes a chunk of damage. Still does have his flask, so he's not going to be too worried about this situation. And Eco now going to be trying to be that front line. And Starting, they are actually not in a great position to contest this Crystal Tree. And Status very, very low, forced the boots out. And now this could actually be in favor of Nova as Edial has to back out too. That's a lot of chunk damage coming down though. This is the point in the game where CP Kestrel will get work done against anybody. And starting has to be super careful.
Yeah, I mean, those glimmer shots coming out, certainly putting on a lot of damage. If those were squishy heroes, if the meta was different, maybe it would be effective. But Tony, Churnwalker, too tanky for Kestrel to really be able to capitalize on it. Status barely getting away with a sliver of health. He does win that trade, though, because he is able to steal away some of the jungle camps. Delphi on this Grumpshot in a bit of trouble. He needs to find the A to get away. But the stun from Catherine going to be too much.
Oh, maybe though. He did just leave his boots at the very last moment. I think, has Truth got a heal for him? Truth might have a heal for him. I think Truth used his own heal. And now Delphi stuck in no man's land. Truth trying to back off and get down to the side lanes and deal with Marto. But that is going to be Delphi escaping on the Grumpjaw. Maleen will pick up the kill onto Status on this Kestrel. And now it is up to Truth to try and kite around Sam and Marto, who are in this jungle. Churnwalker is going to come for some support. A nice dodge by Marto there on the side lanes. Sam actually going to get rooted up. And the basic attack's not doing too much damage from Truth at this point in time. So he's happy to try and tank that through that Storm Guard. And that is going to be Eco and Truth picking up yet another kill on that top side of the map.
Weapon Adagio coming out for Truth. Another pick here in this series that not really part of the traditional meta in 3.6. Truth, though, certainly having a very, very strong weapon power Adagio back when it was in the meta. So I fully expect him to be very effective. But it's going to be really interesting to see. I think Baron in the 1v1 situation certainly going to be able to out-trade him. But with all the heals coming out, it does look like he picks up the poison shift as his first item. Going to be really interesting to see how that works out for him.
Double kill coming out for Status here on the bot side of the map. That's a big pickup for him. It's going to allow him to accelerate that build just a little bit more. Very close to picking up what I assume is going to be a Shatterglass to begin with, because you don't really go Spellfire and CP Kestrel since the changes. I think the Weapon Tower Adagio, that's a very NA pick. Like, that's super North America in terms of meta. Europe almost never plays Weapon Power Adagio, even in competitive. And what it will do is it will spike a lot earlier in the game. So this is, I guess, a mid-game focused game plan coming out from Nova.
Eco getting them all chained up. That's exactly what he needs to do in these team fights. But he's not that tanky early on, and team not putting out enough damage in order to keep him healed and keep him alive.
Yeah, they walked straight through that trap from Status, and he set that up super nicely. This is a good start from Liberation X. Nova actually on the back foot. Maybe Lib can mount a little bit of an attack here. Delphi on the top side of the map, you can see they are so close to taking that tier 1 turret. I think that's going to give that over to Truth, and he gets that last hit onto it as well. So the first turret of the game does go over to Nova, and now they'll begin to rotate around the map, and especially now that Ghostwing has spawned, that should be a target for them. They
can definitely be happy about taking down that first turret, getting them a little bit of momentum. They have a little bit of a gold lead. Not Next needs to be too worried about, but Edial super low down in the bot lane. Sam looking to pick up the kill with the Baron, not going to be able to find it, and now Liberation in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, they overextended, I think, their flash. I was just keeping an eye on Baron. Edial managed to bait him in, and now Sam has to deal with Delphi. Nice jump over. Edial does get the shield, which keeps him alive. Sam, oh, that last-minute ultimate from Delphi immediately spits him out. The ultimate is not going to get the kill onto Edial, who backs off nicely. What a clutch ultimate from Delphi to keep his team alive.
So clutch. Definitely Delphi demonstrating why he is one of the best junglers in North America right now, being able to save Edial's life on that Tony. Nova definitely showing why they are one of the best teams in North America right now, being able to press these leads and advantages in their favor as they start to pressure this mid lane turret.
Yeah, and they are going to continue to siege onto that, starting now level 6 as well. Actually, a level behind this Samuel. D1 has had a pretty solid game so far at 0-0-2. Not only got any kills, but in general did not feeding as hard as he was in the previous game, and starting has got to deal with that level disadvantage. Eco takes the damage once more to the face. The one-shot, one-kill. Going to have to dodge out, but that's not going to be enough, and he's going to go down. Gauntlet a little bit overkill, in my opinion. but gets the job done, and that's going to be a kill onto Eco. They just need to convert it into something now, and I'm wondering if that's going to be Ghostwing.
Yeah, there's definitely room for them to do so. Nova definitely in position to be able to contest. And like you said, Demon did have a relatively, good early game. He didn't give up any kills, but he needs to become involved in these engagements. Samuel is just too strong for him to not be involved in these early game team fights, because as Nova begins to ramp up in terms of their defense, his effectiveness is going to become less and less. And now Marto in this bot lane, unfortunately, going to be falling.
That is a CP buff that is there for starting to take, and he will. They have to be a little bit careful, though, because Sam has now got his Serpent's Mask online, so that's going to start to chunk pretty hard. Other Sam on the Catherine is there, and Ediel is going to back off now, has to use that flask. The ultimate comes through as well. They're trying to make use of this. Starting gets a fountain. Oh, that's a big engage. They did not expect the fountain. Sam got baited in by it, and that's a massive turnaround for Nova. Demon pops a very, very early flask here. I don't know if it's going to save him. Oh, very close. Just about going down to the Churnwalker damage over time from those chains. Status not there in time. And Truth now able to free farm on the top side of the map.
Phenomenal bait by the side of Nova, and even better fountain coming out of Eco to keep his allies alive. And this is what I was talking about. Nova is just so tanky that these heroes like CP Kestrel are really, really struggling to, have the same impact. Sure, Status has 4 kills on the board, but the longer this game goes, the more it progresses, the more his damage is going to fall off as all of these heroes become tankier and tankier. Status gonna try and put some more damage onto this bot lane turret, but with Eco and Ediel there, he's in a bit of trouble, but Sam on the Baron gonna be able to bail him out of it.
Indeed, and the one thing that doesn't concern me, but I will always want to keep my eye on, is that Truth is now sat on this top side of the map. A lot of action going down the bottom side, and he is one of those mid-game weapon power carries. Now, there is 2 schools of thought about what he's doing. He looks like he's just hard farming to hit item spikes and then come into the game around, 12, 13 minutes and start chunking people left, right, and center. I mean, he is about an item and a bit up over Sam at this point in time. And he is going now for the armory turret. They're trying to buy time. What a big engage by Delphi. A huge amount of damage coming out from his A. Eco on the backline trying to soak the damage up. A brilliant ultimate will stun up pretty much everybody from Liberation X. Starting comes through. He's starting to rip them to shreds on this Malign. 4 versus 5, and they can't even deal with Nova as Sam goes down to a double kill. Starting's going to pick that up, and like I said in the meantime, that is just Truth taking a turret and now even an armory on the top side of the map.
Yeah, Truth, not a player that you want to leave uncontested, because he is someone that is going to punish you for it. Not only is he building a massive, massive gold advantage in terms of his last hits, he's building a huge XP advantage too. And when he does get involved, when he does get into these team fights, he's going to be a menace. Now, whether he did this intentionally or not, it's hard to say, but I think the Truth feels like it was so early on into the game, he did not want to fully take the armory because it will have denied him farm, because his wave would have just continually pushed. I think he wanted to still continue be able to farm, and his team getting into a little bit of a skirmish in this bottom side jungle. It'll be interesting when he decides to pull the trigger and start getting himself involved.
They're going for Blacklaw now. That tactic of denying the armory is a little bit similar to something that Leon taught me in Europe. He plays a don't take the turret when he plays bot lane weapon power carries. He doesn't take bot lane turret at all until he absolutely has to, because he just likes to keep forcing the enemy carry down there to defend it. He also likes to make sure that the waves don't push in consistently and he doesn't have to overextend to get the waves. So he just likes to be able to farm and hyper farm and get experience advantages over his opponents by not taking that first tier turret. And I guess in a similar vein, is maybe just to a greater extent, is what Truth is doing here. He does not want to have to constantly basically push all the way to the enemy base to get the farm, although he could just swap lanes if he wanted to. He could just go bot lane.
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard to say. Maybe he was confident and he thought that the minions were... Oh! Huge snipe by Status, being able to pick up starting before this fight starts. Nova, though, very familiar with playing in 4v5. I don't know if that's going to phase them at all.
No, Delphi now doing a lot of damage. Eco actually gets out of the fight with his ultimate. Delphi has to spit out Sam right in front of the Adagio, does manage to escape too. And actually something that we haven't said is just how far ahead Truth is in terms of damage right now. Huge damage coming out from Status. He picks up another one with a well-placed trap. Another ultimate coming through onto Edial. And I think Truth is going to go down here. Status doing some work on this CP Kestrel, but it just doesn't feel like it's enough, like you said. Starting now back in the fight. He is looking to do work, put pain down onto Liberation X, and with the Black Claw still pushing in, they're probably going to get 2 armories out of this at the very least.
At the very least, I think that they are in a pretty decent position to be able to end. You see Tony picking up the boots. He's going to be coming back into this mix very, very soon. But is it going to be soon enough?
I don't think so. I think this is probably going to have to be a small disengage, although saying that teleports boots left, right, and center. Everybody going for teleport boots as Eco comes in as well. Starting still there. No one dealing with Blacklaw. You could be right here. They could just be going strictly for an end here at 14 minutes. It is 3 versus 5 in this scenario. None of them are interested in taking the fight. They all want to end the game. The Vein Crystal's going to go down. And True and Nova take a 2-0 win over Liberation X.
Phenomenal game knowledge by the side of Nova. They understood how healthy Blacklaw still was. They understood that they still had 2 armories down. That enables them to go straight on the Vein Crystal and allows them to take a clean 2-0 over Liberation X.
Well, Liberation X can hold their heads high. They are still the buffest team in Vainglory. They can hold that title. Let's hand it back over to the analyst desk, and they'll break down what was our last game of the Vainglory North America scene.
What a way to do it. Nova are going to take it in the end, and I don't want to say that I'm some kind of prophet, but I called it was going to be an Adagio carry. Truth takes it.
You called it Crystal Adagio
I did call it
carry.
Crystal, and that was very stupid of me. I agree. But I did call it as a carry, and he dominated his lane.
I mean, he really did, and really Nova just kind of dominated this game. Liberation X just did not have the decision making that you need to have to be one of these top teams. They weren't as decisive when it came to pulling the trigger on going for plays. There was one that stood out to me really heavily in the bottom lane where Edial was defending a turret by himself with like less than a quarter health. They had a man advantage there. They didn't pull the trigger on going for that dive, get the kill, then clear out of the turret range and take the turret. Instead, they waited for a third member to come down before trying to make that play. And by the time they waited for that third member to come down, it allowed Nova the time to get themselves in a position to counter that play, which they ended up doing. So it's just little things
I feel like
that.
That is the story of this entire series as well. It was just Nova reading everything Liberation X tried to do and just outplaying it at the end of the day. So Nova are going to move on with our bracket. I do just want to give a quick shout out to Scoundrel and FlashX for their excellent casting today. We'll be seeing them again tomorrow, so thank you for joining us, gents. But let's take a look at where we are in the tournament off the back of this series. We can have a look at our Razer Phone bracket because Nova Esports are now going to be moving forward into our bracket. But this is going to be Group D, which will be happening tomorrow. So we're going to have Vision Gaming coming on it. I think Vision definitely the team to watch in Group D right now.
Oh, absolutely. That's Vision Gaming's bracket to win. They're the ones that are the clear-cut favorites coming out of Group D. Now we're going to get a look at the Group B bracket. And like you mentioned, Nova and the side of Vegetable Juice moving on to face off next week in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely. And both of them having fantastic series here today. Vegetable Juice especially had a phenomenal comeback in their second game. Well deserving of that place in the quarterfinals. Nova definitely going to be a tough opponent for them. Group D is now the last remaining quadrant we have. That's going to be coming at you guys tomorrow. But we have 6 of our 8 quarterfinalists decided now. Before we talk about tomorrow's matchups though, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. Now we can take a look a bit closer at Group D, the last remaining quadrant of our North American bracket here. We have Vision Gaming against Witch Doctor and Dorea versus Genis. Now, I think it's fair to say Vision Gaming are the standout favorite in this segment of the bracket. Witch Doctor, one of our playing teams. I don't want to sugarcoat it, they are going to have a hard time tomorrow against the likes of Vision. But Dorea versus Genis, that matchup I think it reminds me of Vegetable Juice's Polar Ace from today, in that there is a lot of unknown players on either roster, and we could have some serious standouts coming kind of out of the woodwork. We could have some new stars starting to show themselves.
Not only that, but there is also a couple of familiar names in there. You know, Gatsby playing on Jenners. That's a name that's been around at the top level of Vainglory. Some excellent name synergy going on the side of Duraya that you'll get to see tomorrow. But you'll have to tune in to see what I'm talking about if you don't already know.
In a rat, that's all I'm gonna say.
It's pretty excellent, I gotta say. Probably my favorite individual player names scheme, I guess, in the.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. There's also the Baby Groots, but they're not actually in the VPL anymore. So I guess they're out of
because
the
they broke up the band.
They did break up the band. It was a rookie mistake. But that's going to be it from us for today. Thank you so much for joining us here at the VPL. We'll be back tomorrow morning, same time, same place for our European games and then our North Americans to decide who will be in our quarterfinals. Until then, we'll say goodnight and see you tomorrow.